And here we are again for part 2 of Moria. Like I said, I already covered the creation, the history, and my opinions on the dwarves in general, and so on and so forth. So get the nuts and bolts of this thing. The dwarves of Moria, the Khazad, we give them their physical character, their appearance, their manner. Even talk about dwarf women, which are, you know, a running gag or joke to some degree, depending on how you look at it, which is not right. Uh, Here's their explanation. Relatively unfertile and lacking women, dwarves rarely sire children or even take wives. Barely a third of the race is composed of dwarf women, and many of them desire mates they cannot have. Fewer than 1 in 3 dwarf men marry for the non-groomed mate for life and will not join with one they do not desire above all others. Like most rare jewels, female dwarves are coveted and obsessively protected in ways unlike those of many other races. Fortunately, the Nurgrim, the dwarves are enamored of crafts. Many never crave to love another, so they need no martial union. This introspective fascination with the arts and creation encourages stability among a race easily torn by envy and umbrage. Dwarf women are a proud lot, fiercely protective of their rights. They stand on as equals in all affairs but those of war. Dwarves place no restriction on their status or their mobility, although they travel less than dwarf men. They require secure dwellings for birthing their offspring, so most remain sheltered from the rest of the world. In fact, dwarf women are so remote and rarely recognized that some believe they do not exist. Now, okay. I've seen it. You've seen it. It's in varies from game system to game system. Even in Lord of the Rings, depending on the movie, Gimli makes a reference, and Aragorn says, it's the beard. That's well, and yet here we got pictures showing beardless dwarvish women. I'm sorry, but yeah, well, yeah, it's probably plausible that they can grow beards. Most of them don't. I don't think it's. I just think it's. I don't know. Anyway, we got this depth of the language, the worship and ritual. Durin's folk, we got more specifics of the hair and dress, lifestyle. Like I said, if you really want to know things about the dwarves and dwarven society, this is the book to go for because it translates to most game systems. Dwarven technology. That's what I like about the dwarves. Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth does not have gnomes, and where most everything else. I don't know why they don't have gnomes. I don't know where. It's just not something that Tolkien came up with or dreamed. Not to say they don't exist, but whenever I run a Murph campaign, we don't. There's certain races that just don't come over from the other game systems because it's just not here, and we don't want to lose the flavor of Middle Earth. That's something to deal with. But the dwarves make up for it. Dwarven technology. Look at the Battle of Five Armies. They do a crack job of showing dwarvish technology at work. Even the elves chagrin when the anti-arrow shield that the dwarves enact against the first couple barrages what would have been very lethally deadly elvish archer fire. Those big, huge whirling scimitar things, they get launched into the air and knock 90% of those arrows out of the air. Typical, right? And nowhere in Middle Earth does any more detail surviving Middle Earth because we don't know what the second age stuff, first age stuff was like from the Garrod, but Moria is the epitaph of the Dwarven technology and development. So you'll see a lot more engineering and mechanical stuff in there than you would in Erebor. And we see it in the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit. They show the big ironworks and the bellows and the forges and the gears and the pulley systems and so on and so forth. Just imagine what they were like in Moria at the height of its era. They give you a little breakdown of some of the tools, and this stuff's actually very mundane: smelting, forging, mold works, wire works, sheet works, bar works. Here's a pouring machine, runs off a water wheel. Cold forging machines, pulleys, elevators, fire wagons, water wheels, light stones, the works of power, watchers in stone, dwarven warcraft. We got an entire chapter on that. Dwarven trade, another chapter. Next to humans, no other race in Middle Earth trades or engages in economic, progress than the dwarves. In some aspects, even the dwarves outdo the humans when it comes to that sort of thing. It is what it is. And then we get into the mechanics and the locations, the structure of the Dwarven city. It shows how they routed the water flow to control it, to provide for their own needs, use power. Here's a section, and I've come to this one a lot of times when I'm doing other game systems because somebody wants to know, how my weapon's made or how can I get a better weapon. Well, we talk about minerals. It's like plants and animals. The organic substances of poisons and healing agents and so on and so forth. Well, they also have that breakdown in minerals, especially in Middle Earth. We talk about the metals and how they manufacture them, but we got our list of rare and average metals and their properties, and that's where I like come into play. Alchem, and I'm just using this as a round example, otherwise known as tin. The soft silvery metal is normally used to make alloy elvith, although the dwarves use it to line water basins and for much of their decorative film work. It is clear that there is less alchem in Moria than there is among the dwarves of the Blue Mountains. This may be due to the abundance of better metal, because of them's only alchem deposits are in the southeastern mines of the Second Deep. So they make use of tin, mostly and I cannot pronounce the word, figri, frigar, figu, Frak and freaking crap, filigree, Fillagre. I know what it is. I know what it means. For the love of God, I cannot get my tongue around it. Right? And I know why you would see less of it used in Moria, and that's because Moria had mithril, and had silver by the bucket load. So they used that, and that's why their decorations were more superior to anywhere else. Even in Erebor did not reach the level of, and we see some pretty fantastic stuff in the movie. So you imagine what Moria would look like at its height. We see it as a dark pit when they go through it. We never see it what it looked like before. I mean, they could just had a movie on that one alone. You hear me, Jackson, Peter? Hey, you could do a movie on the dwarves alone. Right? Construction methods, pouring stone, carting stone, building techniques, stonework patterns, architectural things. You know what? Nowhere in any other game system have I come across the sheer depth of this sort of stuff. You see hints of it, you see some touched on it, but you don't see it to this level. And what is that? Why is that? Well, I think in part is because, first off, they wanted to show just how industrial and how fantastic the dwarven cities could be, and part because Moria plays such a huge role in the novels and in the movies. Plus, it's so much part of the dwarvish persona and character. This is one of those reasons. So, as a GM, whenever I had a player who really wanted to play a dwarf, I would heavily suggest that they read this book. They go through this material for no other reason to get an appreciation of why the dwarves are so different from everybody else, from all the other races, why their outlook and perceptions are different from any other race. And you really can't get that unless you're one of these dwarven aficionados. And I got a good friend, Kenneth Medley, call him Fuzzface. He's the atypical dwarf, except he's 6'6". He's 6'6". He's got the damn beard and everything. I'm just saying, the man loves to play dwarves, and in part because they're stubborn, they're taciturn, they're relentless, and so's he. Right? So it fits right in with it. So we got tunnels and mine systems, big ones and little ones, avenues, the west gates. But you can see why I tapped into this particular source book so much over the years, because of the material that's available here for creating dungeons and underground citadels and fortresses, and that's a swivel bridge, by the way. You got your drawbridge, well, this one just swivels out of the way. Right? You know the concept. Mechanical functions of a pit trap. Here's a real nasty trap here. I've used that a number of times. You got a series of rolling wheels, either stone or metal, lined up on the wall, and you walk down and send them off, and next thing you know, like the pendulum, reverse pendulum. Moria's evil inhabitants, the orcs and trolls, goes into depth about the orcs of the Black Chasm, Moria's trolls, the beasts, cave worm, the water drake. That's something like Peter Jackson introduced what basically looks like freaking sandworms from Doom, a variant thereof, and the Battle of Five Armies in Hobbit. And I'm thinking, why he needed to introduce that, I'm sorry, but the books did a good job of explaining how the orcs and the goblins managed to travel during the daylight because they ran under a huge, basically a cloud of freaking crows. And, what's the point of having these big things that make it a brief appearance to speed up something? And yet we never see or hear or mention them anywhere else, right? Except here. Here in Moria, the reference to the cave worm. Now, those things were massive, the gargantuan compared to the ones here. The ones they listed here are up to 24 to 36 feet, so they're pretty good size. Dizzying to the minds of some are lured into the city, slimy, foul smelling. They eat anything, even rock. Generally, cave worms grow the lengths of 24 to 36 feet, a fan-like bony ridge and circles of protruding jaws and texture narrow eye sockets, horns shed from the scaly hide covering this mane. They have an ear appearance unlike anything in Middle Earth. They have no appendages or pigmentation, nearly blind. Stains from mud and rock surface their sole coloring, thus the cave worms rely on quick serpentine movements. Circular array of 3-foot white horns, jagged 6-inch fangs. They can rip steel armor apart with graceless ease. That's one way of making tunnel systems, I guess. And of course, the Bullrog. The beasts of Black Chasm are deemed potent, yet they pale before the evil overlord of the lands under the mountain. No animal, monster, no monster, no master arms equates the Bullrog and Moria. We're all familiar with that battle scene between them. You shall not pass between Gandalf and the Bullrog. And I know somewhere, someplace, somebody says the name of this particular Bullrog. But he is literally a demon incarnate. He is a Maya. He's related to the same people or the same race that Gandalf's from. The difference between him and Gandalf is Gandalf's a pretty potent character. Obviously, he eventually overcomes and slays this particular Bullrog. But this Bullrog is ancient and old and well-rooted in his fire nature and is in potent. This is the reason why the dwarves were unable to recapture Moria after several tries. It's because you just couldn't overcome the sheer presence of this thing. My money said if you put Smog and the Bullrog together in the same cavern, the Bullrog would be wearing Smog as a jacket. Even Smog's not stupid enough to go face to face with one of these things, and yet Gandalf handles him, kills him, at the cost of his own life, mind you. That's why he comes back. He's reincarnated. He's resurrected as the Gandalf the White. But we're going off into a tangent. Anyway, so we actually have the stats for the Bullrog right here for Rollmaster. He's a fire spirit, huge. Hit points 120. He's at armor plate. Armor type is plate. Attack is 20, its defense is 20. Defensive bonus is 60. Power points 196. Spell bonus 36. 72 for any directed spells. So you've got the equivalent of 36 level spellcaster here. Once again, you don't see these guys throwing fireballs and flinging magic around, but they have the ability to do so. Moria's layout, the overview of the mines, the overview of the city, terrain locations, so on and so forth. Your structural, what have you, is random. This is where Rollmaster comes into its own. is the creation of these charts of random thingamabobs. In this case, random locations. So you actually, as a GM, do not have to think ahead on everything. You can, okay, we're in the city avenue. Here's a stairway or a guard post. You're in the mines. Here's a cavern or grotto, quarry, and so on and so forth. Just randomly roll, and it just speeds things up. I use this style, this system of stuff in my own game system. The working title is Stellar Frontiers because it just makes it, well, it's the only way it makes it work. You know, if you're going to have a solo game system that you play by yourself, with yourself, and nobody else, it has to be 100% adaptable and adjustable. I mean, it needs to not be predictable. And this is one way to help that. You can't cover all your contingencies, but you can get a big chunk of it. So the center tiers, the upper levels of the city, the mines, the lower deeps of the city, places of note. And then, like I said, when you're dealing with a place of this magnitude, this size, it's just not possible to create an actual floor map of the 14 levels and deeps of all it so in great detail. So they come up with this, which basically gives you the basic layout of each level and each deep. So you see, goes on, and the key locations of major caverns or major transit points or unique locations that are worthy of note. You know, like the armories on the fourth deep or whatever, and the king's chambers. Now look at that! How spectacular is that? King's chamber, right? The king's throne room. Unfortunately, that's the same one that Balrog uses for his lair. Cold forges, king's chambers in the armory, chamber of the teeth, and the seventh dwarf. Then we get a vertical scale map to give you an idea of the size. This is where Gandalf slays the Balrog after they climb the Durin Stair. They fell all the way down to this huge water-filled cavern at the bottom. So somewhere up here in the top, they fell off the bridge, fell all the way down here, and we see it. We see that rendition of it in the movies. Right? Awesome. Awesome thing, my friends. Awesome. So, like I said, we got our adventure guidelines, adventures in Moria, all that. Moria. Probably one of the most extensive source books in MERP, even though it's, you can see it's, none of these source books are you can't compare it to the fancy heavy bind books today where, a half inch to an inch thick, obviously, but the sheer material, the sheer amount of stuff that they crammed into these things is staggering, and a great example of what you can do if you set your mind to it and you're a creative wordsmith. You're a creative wordsmith, right? I can only hope to someday achieve a small fraction of their capability, their abilities, and I tried. So there you have it, Moria. If you don't ever get any other MERP book, Moria is the one to get because you can find probably more use out of it than anything else that Iron Crown produced for Moria or for Middle-earth, outside of playing Middle-earth, right? I'm just saying, and I'll bet you can get it through drive-through games or whatever. You can get PDF versions of it. I've even seen a couple copies of these things floating around on eBay and Amazon. Just the prices are like, it tells me how much a lot of my stuff's worth. It's worth more than I thought. Some things aren't worth as much as I thought. So, and of course, most of their stuff are brand new. It looks new right out of. I can only guess how that's possible. Yes, finally wake up. Well, goofy cat. Right, there you go. Moria Part 2.